UFC 317 was just announced. Dana White has let us down again, and I'm no longer watching the sport because of this fight. No, I'm just kidding, guys. But Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira is like a huge step down from Topuria versus Makhachev. It just is. But we expected it. And like Max Holloway says, it is what it is, dude. We're going to get it, so we may as well enjoy it. It's still a cool fight. And he also announced Whittaker versus Reiner de Ridder, which is a really good card, by the way. This card honestly competes with 317. I have a bit of a problem with 317, but we also have Khamzat Chimaev and Dricus Du Plessis. They're fighting in August in Chicago. That is the middleweight title fight that we've all been waiting for. I wish that they put it on 317. I got the Dana White announcement, and I was like, oh, he's going to announce Du Plessis Chimaev on the same card, but it's a different card. It is what it is. They haven't announced any other fights for that, but first and foremost, let's get to 317. We know that this is for the vacant lightweight title. The UFC is completely done with allowing fighters to hold on to their belt if they're trying to go for a belt in a higher weight class. They're done with the double champ stuff. Obviously, we're still going to consider someone like Islam Makhachev or Topuria a double champ if they go up and win another belt in a new weight class. It is what it is. That's what we're going to consider it as. But Makhachev is going to have to give up his belt. But if he loses his belt to JDM, we know he'll come right back down and fight Ilia Topuria. But if Makhachev beats Jack Della Maddalena, he's never going to come back down. People think that that's like a bad take. Some people were like, what do you mean he can't go back down? Well, who's to say he's not gonna? Dude, if Islam Makhachev can win the title at 170 pounds, what makes you think he's going to want to cut back down to 155 ever again? If that means he's going to have to weight drain himself to fight the guy that just knocked out Charles Oliveira, Volkanovski, Max Holloway back-to-back, you think he's going to want to do that? Or do you think he's going to want to sail off into the sunset and retire on top as a double champ? Okay? The Topuria fight, the only way we get it is if he loses to JDM. You know what's crazy? The last few weeks and the next few months will just be like, you know, it's going to be so hard to root for Jack Della Maddalena because, like, if he beats Bilal, we no longer get Topuria Makhachev. If he actually, wait a second, I got it all wrong. Actually, we got to root for JDM more than ever. Because if he beats Makhachev, then we get JDM versus... I can't even talk, bro. Sorry, guys. My brain is not working properly today. But you get the point that I'm making. Actually, no. We have to root for JDM harder than ever. It's the opposite circumstance to the Bilal fight. All right? And Jack Della Maddalena is a pretty easy champ to root for. But, like, really, though, if you want to see the Makhachev-Topuria fight, Makhachev can't beat Jack Della Maddalena. I'm sorry. He's never going to move back down. So you either have to accept that Makhachev and Topuria are just going to have separate careers and they're never going to fight, which fucking sucks. I'm not going to sit there and act like it doesn't suck. Not for a second. Okay, because yeah, Charles Oliveira and Topuria, that's a great fight. It's an amazing fight, but let's be honest, dude. It can't even hold a candle to that other one. But let's talk about this, man. Topuria versus Oliveira. Listen, it's a decent card, but I'll be honest, I expected an unbelievably stacked card for UFC 317. I can't be the only one. And listen, I know the people say that I complain about these cards. The reason why anyone would call this unbelievably stacked is because they're accustomed to bad cards these days. But when I say unbelievably stacked, I mean UFC 299, Petr Yan as just like a regular fight on the main card, Poirier, Benoit Saint Denis, right? I mean, listen, UFC 317, it's just not feeling like a huge card right now. I know Topuria is a big name. Oliveira, he doesn't have the same hype that he did a few years back. But it's still a big fight, of course. However, I don't know. I just expected the main card to be a little bit more stacked. I expected Dana White to roll out like another big fight, like a Strickland versus someone. Or before he announced Whittaker and Reiner de Ridder for its own fight night, I expected like a Whittaker, Reiner de Ridder type of fight. We got a couple of flyweight fights, but, you know, flyweight title fight, Brandon Royval, Manel Cap, that's a sick fight. That's a great stylistic matchup. This is a really good card. It's a good card. 100%. Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano, Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov. Do not take this as I'm saying it's not a good card. This is a good card. It's a solid card. But, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is literally what every pay-per-view should look like. Like this is what pay-per-views should be. And when I'm looking at International Fight Week, I think International Fight Week should just be a tad bit better. The main event's awesome, but you can't help but feel like we lost something greater because Makhachev and Topuria are not fighting. So because of that, it feels less big, right? And also, Pantoja, Kai Kara France, that's a big fight, okay? Dariush Moicano, you know, if that was like Gagey, not Gagey and Patty, because I don't want Patty fighting an old man Rufus, actually. I want Patty fighting someone in their prime, but, Patty versus someone in their prime, right? I feel like, bring Rufus in to fight someone. Rufus versus Benoit Saint Denis, and then you have Beneil Dariush and Renato Moicano underneath it. You understand what I'm saying? You needed that Justin Gaethje. You needed that Yuri Prohaska. You need a fight like that to really make it feel like International Fight Week. Beneil Dariush, Renato Moicano, listen, man. Beneil Dariush, man, he's my favorite fighter, man. Nah, dude. But you get my point. You get my point, bro. You get my point. It's a good card. It's an amazing card. But it's just not unbelievably stacked. When will we get 299 again? When will we get 300 again? Will we ever get that again? I swear I thought Dana White was going to announce the co-main event, Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis. International Fight Week, same card. See you later, guys. And just drops the iPhone, whatever. Dude, that would have been so epic. But you know what? It's a good card. These are great stylistic matchups. Dude, Renato Moicano, Beneil Dariush, amazing stylistic matchup. Manel Kape on the same card. We've all wanted Manel Kape versus Kai Kara France. They're still going to be on the same stage of the press conference. So that's pretty epic. They're going to be beefing. And that sets up a big fight if Kai Kara France beats Pantoja. But also, I'm kind of happy for Pantoja here because everyone's going to be watching Ilia Topuria's lightweight debut, and I think this is where Pantoja can really shine. I know we had the main event where he fought above Shavkat Rakhmonov and Ian Gary, and that was probably his breakout moment into the mainstream because hardcore fans obviously were talking about Pantoja as a great champ and all that, but he had a main event where he got a really good clinic win over Kai Asakura. But here he is, co-main event, International Fight Week. If he can defend his belt and solidify himself as the second greatest flyweight of all time, that'll be awesome, man. So I think this is great for Pantoja's career, and I think this is a really good opponent in Kai Kara France to bring out a really good fight. Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov, as I said a few weeks back, I would have loved it if Paulo Costa and Roman Kopylov was the biggest fight on the prelims. That's how you know a card's going to be super stacked for International Fight Week, but stylistically, amazing. I love it. So, listen, this is a great card. I just feel like it needs a Yuri Prohaska on it. You know what I mean? It needs one of those really solid number one contenders fights as the feature fight. Jack Hermansson's back versus Gregory Rodriguez. I love that. That's a great fight. Janata Denise, Justin Taffa. Okay, so here it just takes a huge jump off in talent and hype. Viviana Arahu, Tracy Cortez. I'll do a 1 hour breakdown on the boxing channel for that one. This is good. Jack Hermansson, Gregory Rodriguez. I'm picking Jack, man. I'm picking Hermansson. Paulo Costa, Roman Kopylov. You already know Costa's getting destroyed. Brandon Royval, Manel Kape. Early prediction, Manel Kape's been looking really good. But can he do it without the eye pokes? Can he look as good as he's been looking without the eye pokes against Brandon Royval? And Brandon Royval has been looking like, he's improved again. He's improved a few times throughout his career, but he's looking like actually maybe if he were to fight Pantoja again, he'd give him a tougher fight. So that's an amazing fight. Dariush Moicano. Dariush has been out for so long, man, because he lost that fight with Renato Moicano earlier this year. He was supposed to fight him, and then Renato obviously filled in for Arman Tsarukyan and fought Islam Makhachev. I don't know if I like the layoff for Beneil Dariush. I mean, I know I don't like it, so I'm probably not going to pick him. Pantoja, Kai Kara France, that's a tricky one. But I can't lie, dude, Pantoja's looking unstoppable at this point, so I feel like he's got a lot of momentum. Kai Kara France is kind of inactive these days, so yeah. And then Topuria Oliveira, I'll probably do a breakdown on that, just discussing that fight in a few weeks, but You guys already know my prediction. Okay, I don't even need to say it. You guys already know who I think is going to win. Whittaker versus Reiner de Ridder. I feel like this would have been good for International Fight Week, but you know what? I love a stacked fight night. They're always going to stack the fight nights in the Middle East. Reiner de Ridder, Robert Whittaker. A lot of people seem to be going with Reiner de Ridder here, but I don't know if they have a good reason to pick him. This isn't Khamzat Chimaev, and I know that that's a way that people pick fights quite often is, someone will get destroyed by the best grappler in the sport, and then they face another grappler, and they'll be like, well, it's not Makhachev. This guy's not Makhachev. And then they get beat the same way, right? So the best guy writes the blueprint on how to beat them, and then they keep losing the same way. So it is possible that Reiner de Ridder can win, but he doesn't have the same physicality, speed, and talent as Khamzat Chimaev. Like, he's very good, but beating Bo Nickel is a very different thing than beating Robert Whittaker. Like, they're on two different planets as far as skill goes, as far as grit goes, as far as specifics go. Whittaker may not be training specifics with Craig Jones, but he has a lot of specifics with his takedown defense. So I think I'm going to go with Whittaker. But I love the fight. I love it as a main event. Shara Magomedov, Marc-Andre Barrieu. That's a great fight. I'm surprised with the fight. I wouldn't ever think that Marc-Andre Barrieu was going to get a co-main event, but you know what? He's getting some shine after the big KO win in Canada, so I like that for the original Marauder. People don't know this, but Marauder's actually evolved from Marc-Andre Barrieu, but that's an interesting fight. I think Shara should probably piece him up. Marc-Andre Barrieu got a KO against a husk of Bruno Silva, so I don't know if that's actually going to carry over to fighting a long-rangey kickboxer like Shara Magomedov. Bogdan Guskov, the real Anthony Smith, is fighting Nikita Krylov. Quick turnaround for Nikita Krylov, and a dangerous one at that. I don't know if I like that for Nikita Krylov, who I was calling the Wild Man Yuri 2.0, right? So I don't know. That's actually a really good fight, though. Like, this is the kind of fight that you kind of need as like the feature fight on International Fight Week. You get Moicano and Dariush, it could be a grappling match. You got to have one of these wild man fights, with two guys that are just throwing spinning elbows, and one guy has the hands down like Bogdan Guskov, just throwing from the hips. This will be a sick fight. This is like two, Walmart Yuri Prohaskas, but entertaining, obviously. Asual Mabayev, Ramazan Tamirov, great fight. Ibo Aslan, Billy Elikana. Billy Elikana, I remember he made his UFC debut up a weight class. Oh, wait a second. Whoa, wait a second. Billy Elikana actually took my advice. I remember he made his debut on short notice at light heavyweight, and he looked really good because he almost got a submission. I forget who he was fighting, and I said, this guy should not move back down to middleweight because he has lighter man skill. He should stay at light heavyweight, and he actually is staying at light heavyweight, and he's fighting someone that's not that skilled. So don't sleep on Billy Elikana. And then Khamzat Chimaev versus Dricus Du Plessis, main event. I hope that they stack this card, guys. Like, I just miss 2024. I know that a lot of the content creators, myself, MMA Guru, we were making those videos complaining about 300, and it seemed like we were complaining about the UFC, but that was like a special run. 298, Volk versus Topuria, stacked card. You had Whittaker and Costa on the same card. Merab versus Cejudo, just so many good fights. 299 was amazing. 300 was amazing. We had the Abu Dhabi card that was amazing. This year, the first event of the year, Makhachev versus Arman, was on paper going to be amazing, but then Arman pulled out, right? I feel like we've not had an unbelievably stacked card in some time, but you just know they're not going to do that for Chicago. But I hope that they can at least make this decent. All right. Khamzat versus Dricus. You got to go with Khamzat Chimaev, brother. You got to go with Khamzat, right? The thing is, we all know that if you pick Khamzat, you're picking him by first or second round sub. If you're picking Dricus, you're picking him to win if it goes past the first round, second round. So, yeah, it's not the most difficult fight to break down. It is a pretty scary matchup for Khamzat, though. Dricus Du Plessis knows what he's getting into. Everyone knows what they're getting into with Khamzat. He's going to shoot a takedown in the first 10 seconds. He's going to get you down. It's inevitable that he's going to get you down. And You may think Dricus is going to shoot a takedown. I heard Dricus' coach say that in a submission radio interview, that who's to say Dricus won't shoot a takedown. He said it. So that's possible. And actually, I think that'd be a really good game plan, because if Dricus actually shoots the first takedown, that'll make Khamzat Chimaev expend a lot of energy with takedown defense. And if Khamzat doesn't have all the energy that he has in the first round right before he shoots that shot, if he has to stuff a few takedowns from Dricus before he shoots that first shot, he might not be as effective when he finally lands the first takedown. So that actually would be a brilliant game plan for Du Plessis. And we know that Du Plessis has a really good gas tank. Even though Khamzat's gas tank may be a little bit underrated these days, because people might expect him to just gas out after one round, you know that Dricus probably has the better gas tank. So it's a tough one, but I might go with Dricus, because even though Khamzat definitely could get him out of there in one round, and he is the only grappler, aside from maybe Makhachev in the sport, where you can kind of consistently count on a first-round finish. Like you have people like Ngannou, and, it's not far-fetched to just pick Ngannou to win every single fight by first-round KO, or same thing with Tom Aspinall. With grapplers, can you really do that often? But then again, Khamzat would be the guy that you could just pick to win every single fight first round sub, and you'd have a pretty good chance of being right every single time. But then again, Dricus Du Plessis is so strong at middleweight. He's so tough. He's so durable. He's got really good grappling. He will be the guy. He'll be the type of fighter to do something like shoot a takedown on Khamzat before all else. But you know what? Maybe it would just get reversed instantly, and maybe Khamzat would just find himself in a dominant position from that. So maybe actually that'd be terrible for Dricus Du Plessis. But I find myself just believing in Dricus Du Plessis' ability to survive. And therefore, if he does survive, I think he has a great chance of destroying Khamzat, finishing him in the later rounds. Dricus is kind of a nightmare matchup. I mean, I know some people may say it's Cal Baraujo, but Baraujo, yeah, he's good and he's skilled and he's well-rounded, but Du Plessis is all of that, but he has the mentality of the champion. Like, he has the true champion's mentality that usually we don't see in any division unless it is the champ, unless it's Volk, unless it's Du Plessis, unless it's someone that's defended their belt 100 times. You know what I mean? Just because they've got the fight IQ, they will never quit. And not saying Khamzat quits. We saw that in the Gilbert Burns fight that he doesn't, but I could see him getting tired and looking way worse in the second and third round than he does in the first, and therefore being way less effective. And I know Kamaru Usman, lighter man skill, tested him in those second and third rounds. Dricus Du Plessis doesn't have that, but he does have the brute mentality. He's got the finishing ability. So it's an interesting fight. I don't even know who I'm going to pick. That is one of the best title fights we have ever had at middleweight. So yeah, you know what? I'm pretty excited for this summer. I'm still a little bummed out that we're not getting Makhachev and we're not getting Ilia Topuria. I guess if JDM wins, then we get to see that fight, but I don't know. I'm starting to feel like it's just destiny that that's never going to happen. Like, that fight was too good to be true, and that it's almost cursed. It's like the new Khabib and Tony Ferguson fight. It's a cursed fight. We're never going to get it. So you may as well just expect Makhachev to win the second belt and expect either Topuria to lose in a Nate Diaz, Conor McGregor type of moment, or him to win and just defend his belt and then retire. Because some people were like, I saw Bedtime's thumbnail and he says, the next lightweight GOAT. And I think Topuria is capable of that. But again, Topuria has always talked about retiring early before he's 30 years old. You can't become the lightweight GOAT with 2 lightweight wins. You know, you can become the GOAT with a couple of lightweight wins if you've got a bunch of great wins in other divisions, but you can't become the lightweight GOAT unless you've got a bunch of good lightweight wins. So that is, unless he beats Charles Oliveira, defends his belt again, and then beats Makhachev. Like, then we could have a conversation. But then again, 3 fights, is that really enough? I feel like you got to have more. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. We've got a bunch of good fights this summer. Until next time.